Welcome to One Door Studios. As of today, we've surpassed $700,000 in investments, and we've exceeded 800 investors on our team. Also, it's story time with John Lee today as he tells us a really unusual experience he had at the bank while teaching film finance. Welcome, everybody, to another One Door Studios update. Today's update is really kind of helping investors understand a little bit of how we do business and with bank financing. It's the biggest question I get, and the biggest skepticism I get is, why would a bank fund the production budget of the film? And John is going to tell us a story, and you're also going to see his background shift a couple of times. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties with John and his computer. So some of his video is outside and some of his video is inside. But there's a really good reason we're telling you this story, and we're going to wrap it up afterwards. So, John, you were at Chase Bank one time with some students. You were a professor at a university teaching film finance, among other things. And so we want you to tell us this story real quick. It's really interesting.
By the way, first, John, that's a really amazing Zoom background you got there. How'd you pull that off?
Yeah, this is the real thing. So we get up to the top of this high rise with our students. So they file us into this big boardroom, and we're waiting for the chief, the head of the entertainment division globally, who is John Miller. And he wanted to take this meeting with the students because he really wanted to put them through their paces. So they file in, take their seats. A couple of assistants were there with us, getting us drinks and one thing and another. And then John Miller walks in, and everyone visibly stiffens. Even I was a little nervous because I wasn't quite sure what John was going to do. But he asked him a question. He said, "How many of you know how to come into a bank for your first meeting and what the bank might want?" And every one of them raised their hand and said that they knew. And he got a big smile on his face. Really? Really? All right, so tell me what you'd bring in with you to the bank for your first meeting. And he looked around the table and he said, you tell me what you'd bring in. And this student leaned forward, full of confidence, and said, "Well, I'd bring in my completion bond sheet that showed the worksheet, the funding worksheet on how I was going to finance the film, what collateral I was going to provide, that would already have been cleared with the bond company." And John said, wait. Okay, I think I just picked the sharpest person in the room. So he looked around the table a little bit more and he said, what else would you bring into the meeting? And he said, "Well, I'd bring as much of the bank loan memorandum as I had put together at that point, so that I could prove to the person I was meeting with here at your bank, how we were going to approach the funding, and that would include a rough of the introductory letter." And he said, "An introductory letter?" He said, "Yes, that would go before the rest of the materials in the memorandum." He said, "All right, what would you put in that?" He turned to another student. "What would you put in that introductory letter?" And he said, "Well, we would open up with," and he listed down the things that would go into the introductory letter. And John Miller was pretty undone. He looked around the table and he said, "Do you all know this?" And they shook their head affirmatively, very confident that he did. And he turned to an assistant and sent her out of the room for something. And then he turned back to them and continued to grill them on what would be included and what they need to finance the picture. And then and they just did extraordinarily well on all the points. I won't bore you with what all the elements are. You can go into the Producer's Business Handbook and read them for yourself and look at the pieces and their definitions. But they all passed with flying colors. The assistant came back into the room and handed him a handful of something. And he started with the first student closest to him and walking behind them around this U-shaped table. He handed each one of them his personal card. And he said, "When you come in for your first production bank loan, if you come into this bank, I want you to call my assistant and remind her of this meeting. Tell her when it was and that I was here and gave you my card personally, and I want to take your loan personally and move it through the process. And I was completely undone, and the students were too. I was not expecting that, but neither was John Miller, frankly. He was just blown away. And just a little background on that, when, especially in the trades, they'll make an announcement that Lakeshore has just received a $400 or a $500 million line of credit for a certain number of pictures. And independent producers get all excited and will make appointments with Chase Bank, and they'll come in, and invariably what they bring with them is a script and a budget, as if the bank was going to read the script and make some kind of creative decision that it might make money or something. And that's just not how the banks lend money.
So there's a reason I had you tell the story, John, and it's really for our investors, because, like I said earlier, the question I get the most, or the skepticism I get the most from people, is like, why would a bank fund a film? It doesn't make any sense, because people are so used to the invest in the entire production budget of the film model, which generally fails and doesn't make any money. And I'm sure that most of our investors have not read all of the details about our business plan. And our business plan is that we are in the development phase right now of Calculated, and nearing the end of development, we approach a bank with a lot of collateral. The collateral is the IP, the completion bond, all of the brand tie-ins, all of the distribution contracts,
distribution agreements.
Yeah. And we go to the bank with that, and that is all collateral, where we get the production funding for the larger amount of $40-50 million to produce the film. And so I wanted to tell a story because it really brings into light, as you said, it is very predictable what happens in these meetings at the bank, and the bank funding is actually very predictable. Isn't that right, John? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, there's no risk for the bank, because banks don't take risk. They're fully covered, and so the number one reason that most independent motion pictures fail is that they don't have distribution before they produce. And the bank forces that. And
Jason, you've said to me before, you've been in these meetings with John, at the bank, and you had something to say about it too when you were talking to me about it.
Well, yeah, it was a similar experience. I totally was in shock, honestly, when I first went in. Film Finances was the first meeting we had for another client, and I was just amazed at just the level of comfort that they had. We all sat down, and it was just like a well-oiled machine, and they knew John from long ago and knew who he was. And then even more so when we went into the bank, because they didn't know John. This was a bank that John had not, or I don't know, maybe John, you've been to that bank before, but it was not a banker we had met with.
Yeah.
And he was,
that was the Union Bank?
Yeah. But I just remember sitting there watching him kind of, and his eyes got wider and wider. His excitement level got higher and higher. And by the end, he was like, yeah. We'll definitely want to work with you guys. He's looking at this worksheet that we gave him.
Yeah.
It's fun. I was just talking to an early investor yesterday who mentioned to me, so are you not going to do the plan you said you were going to do before? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he says, well, I thought you were going to take the $2 million from that you raised and give that to the bank, so they'll give you a bigger loan. And now you're spending it on scripting and all this stuff. So I was like, oh, no. Let me explain. So,
Yeah. So really this whole story today has just been so our investors, can comprehend the structure of what we're doing and how predictable that part of the process actually is. So there's really nothing else to our update besides that. Just wanted to keep you guys informed. I thought this would be a great story to tell you today. So we're all kind of a little on vacation this week. Our families are all visiting, so we're going to be out until next week sometime. But we encourage you guys to continue to share the news about our project with friends and family, and it's moving forward. A lot of stuff moving forward. You've probably seen how much we've raised in the last 2 weeks. It's we've broken 700,000 just in the last day or two. Almost 800 investors now. It's just unbelievable. So
is.
That's all for this week, and we're looking forward to seeing you again next week from One Door Studios. Have a great day, everybody.